Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Chapter 42, verse 1. There's been this terrible famine in Egypt. We mentioned, actually, let's just see chapter 41, verse 57, the last verse of 41. All of the surrounding lands came to Egypt to get food from Yosef, because throughout the region, not just in Egypt, the famine was very strong. And now, chapter 42, Vayar Yaakov ki yashev b'Mitzrayim. Yaakov, the patriarch of the family, sees that there's food to be had in Egypt. Vayomer Yaakov levanav. Yaakov said to his sons, Lama tisra'u. Lama tisra'u is a very interesting phrase. Tisra'u is a very interesting word here. Lama, why? Tisra'u seems like a language of why should you appear. Difficult to understand what that means. There's clearly something else going on in this phrase. Let's start with the Ramban. Ramban on Pasuk Aleph. Lama tisra'u. Al taru atzmachem sveim lifnei bnei Esav v'Yishmael. So he starts off by citing Rashi. Don't present yourselves as being satiated to the descendants of Esav and Yishmael. So Rashi says that actually Yaakov and his family had sufficient food. They were not impacted by the famine at this point. Okay. So Rashi has two ideas. One idea is that the family was doing fine. And just Yaakov said, everyone else is running all over the place to get food. We're going to arouse people's jealousy if we don't act in kind. So we have to do what everybody else is doing. The place to go is Egypt right now. We should go to Egypt. They shouldn't be jealous of us. That's the first pshat in Rashi. The second pshat is Rashi. Is Tisro actually is a language of looking thin. You look so thin. We're not eating enough. Let's go down to Egypt to get food. Or let's send someone down to Egypt to get food. So the Ramban really doesn't think the second pshat is correct. Umasha Omer al karu atzmachem sveim bnei Yishmael bnei Esav lo avinosi she'ein bnei Yishmael bnei Esav ato beretz Canaan v'loma lo yomash lo yarus atzman sveim bnei Eretz Canaan. The Ramban says this, the language of the Medrash that Rashi is citing is very difficult. It says don't show yourselves to be satiated in the presence of the descendants of Esav and Yishmael. Says the Ramban, these people weren't living in Israel then. So why are we talking about them? The issue is not the descendants of Esav and Yishmael. The issue is the residents in the land of Israel, their neighbors. V'ulai hayu bnei Yishmael bnei Esav bo b'yim me'eretz achuzasam el Yosef lishpor v'yu boim derech Eretz Canaan ovrim alav. Maybe, says the Ramban, these people came from their lands. The descendants of Esav and Yishmael came from their lands, and they also had to go to Egypt to get food, and they would go through the land of Israel in their path to get food from Egypt. So Yaakov now says to his sons, as these distant relatives of ours pass through our land, we shouldn't show ourselves to be satiated. These people are traveling to Egypt to get food. If they see that you guys look well, they'll decide that we have food to give them. Now, what's difficult according to this pshat is he says, let's go down, let's send you fellows down to Egypt and we'll live and not die. So if you say that he says to them, wow, you all look so thin, then it's understandable, we'll live and not die because we need the food. According to this pshat in the Medrash that we're going with, that Yaakov's just saying we should kind of do what everybody else is doing because we don't want them to think we have all this food. So what does he mean, let's go down to Egypt so we can live? So Ramban says it must be, according to this pshat, they weren't, you have to be quiet, okay? They weren't desperate in the moment, but they didn't have that much more. So Yaakov is saying at some point we were going to have to go down to get food from Egypt. And so if we're at some point we're going to have to, in order to preserve our lives, go down to get food from Egypt, let's do it now when everybody else is doing it so that we don't look funny. The Hanachon, but the Ramban says what I think the pshat is, Lama tisra'u b'makom hazeh. Why are you appearing in this place? Ki hayolochem lisa miyad. Kasher shematem she'yeshev b'Mitzrayim ki kfar b'sakana hayu im lo yimaru l'davar. Ramban says what I really think the pshat is it is a language of appearing, but it's not a language of what will the neighbor say, and it's definitely not a language of being thin. The Ramban says, you know what he's saying to them? He's saying, I have no idea why I see you here right now. The moment you heard that there was food in Egypt, you should have dropped everything to go down there. Why are you still here? That's what they're on, because we're gonna die. We're gonna die if we don't get food. That's the Ramban's pshat over here. Let's just see what the Sforno says on this. Sforno on pasuk aleph lama tisra'u. I think this is a really nice pshat. Lama tabitu zel zeh. Why do you keep on looking at each other? Kol echad mikem mitzape sheyelech chaveiro v'yasur. Why do you keep on looking at each other to figure out who's going to go down to Egypt to get the food? Get moving and don't waste your time trying to figure out who's going to go. Just go. That's an interesting pshat. Okay, now we're going to go on to verse 9. Okay, this is the big, well, let's actually start from verse 6. This is the big moment. So they go down to Egypt, and the policy seems to be that you have to see the viceroy of Egypt in order to get food. He has to interview you, or at least he has to look at the files. And so these people are brought into Yosef. Verse 7. Vayar Yosef esachav vayakireh. Yosef saw his brothers and he recognized them. Vayisnaker alehem. He acted like a stranger to them. Vaydaber itam kashos. And he spoke strong to them. Vayomer alehem me'ayin basem. And he said to them, where are you coming from? Vayomru, and they said, Me'eretz Canaan lishbor ochel. They said, we are coming from the land of Israel to get food. Verse 8, Vayaker Yosef esachav v'hem lo hikiru. Yosef recognized his brothers. They did not recognize him. And now, verse 9. Vayizkor Yosef eis hachalomos asher cholam lahem. Yosef remembered the dreams that he dreamt about them. Remember, we started that story. We told us about the two dreams, and they're very skeptical. And then he says to them, Vayomer alehem meraglim atem. He looks at them and says, I think you're spies. Deros eservas haaretz basar. You came to see the weak spots in this land. So this is probably the most pressing question on this parsha. Why in the world is Yosef giving his brothers a hard time? Why is he giving them a hard time? What's going through his mind to why to give them a hard time? And what is the connection between this and his remembering the dreams? What's the significance of the fact that he remembered the dreams? What's that about? Let's see the Ramban on Pasuk Tes. Vayizkor Yosef eisas chalomos asher cholam lahem. Alehem v'yada sheniskaimu sharei yishtachavu lo lashon Rashi. So Rashi says the significance of Yosef remembering the dreams is he says to himself, oh my gosh, this is the fulfillment of those dreams I dreamt long ago. The dreams were that they would bow to him, and here it is, I'm the provider, and they'll do whatever they can to get food from me. It's like this moment of sort of like the circle completing. This is the fulfillment of the dream. That's what Rashi says. Now the Ramban. Ulefi dati, I think shadavar behepech. It's just the opposite. Ki yomer akasuv ki biros Yosef esechav mishtachavim lo. Yosef sees his brothers bowing to him. Zochar kol hachalomas asher chalam lahem. He remembers the dreams. V'yada shelo niskayim echad mehem bapam azos. And he thinks to himself, no, the dreams have not yet been fulfilled. This is definitely along the path of the dreams, but this is not a fulfillment of the dream. He yodea bepisronam. He knows what the dreams mean. He kol echav yishtach v'lo b'tchila min hachalom harishon. The first dream was not all of his brothers except Binyamin bowing to him. And that was the scene here. Binyamin is still back with Yaakov. and all the other brothers bowed. That's not what he dreamt. And in the second dream with the bundles, also the implication was all of the brothers. In the second dream, it wasn't only the brothers bowing. There's this idea of the sun and the moon, which represent parental units in some way. Since he didn't see Binyamin with them, Gam Binyamin Achiv Elav Lekayim Achalom Harishon Techila. This is, I think this is a very, very important Ramban for perspective on this story. The Ramban says, and it fits into the comment that you raised yesterday. The Ramban says that Yosef saw these dreams as an important message from God. And on the one hand, it's fascinating that clearly this is like the dreams that he had, but it's also not down to the detail because Binyamin's not in this picture. And so he asks himself, why did God send me this dream anyway? And it must be as a message to me. So he says, I'm supposed to keep this stringing along until Binyamin is in the picture. And until Binyamin is in, it's like God sent me a note. If you see them bowing to you, don't change that picture until they're all bowing to you. And they're not all bowing to me. I want to be very clear. The Ramban is not saying that Yosef was having one good time here and the dream was telling him that he could have an even better time. That's not what's going on. Definitely not. The Ramban is saying that God was telling him a life path and that he was playing this fundamental role and it wasn't yet the moment because the dream wasn't yet fulfilled. At this moment, he didn't want to tell them, I'm Yosef, your brother. He doesn't tell them, go get my father. He doesn't say that. Because, of course, the moment he would reveal himself to them and ask for his father to come, his father would come. And he's waiting. We have to go in order. There was a reason why I had two dreams. There was a reason that the second dream was even deeper in than the first dream. So the first step is all the brothers have to be bowing to me. And they're not all here. Once I get all the brothers to bow to me, the next step is to get to a point where my father is coming. And now the Ramban says, Velule Cain, if not for the fact that Yosef was listening to the message of the dreams, Yosef chote chet gadol, l'tzayir es aviv l'amido yamim rabim b'shchol v'ovel al Shimon v'alav. How otherwise could Yosef do this? That he leaves his father stringing along, thinking that his son Yosef is no longer of this world, wondering what will be with Shimon. Shimon's going to be imprisoned in this story. The af im hayritzono l'tzaris achiv es echav sas. Maybe, says the Ramban, maybe he was trying to give a little bit of distress to his brothers. If you think that's the pshat, eich lo yachmal al sevus aviv. You think that's the pshat, what does he have against his dear father? What did his father do to him? So it must be that he feels he's following a divine directive. Yosef knew that the dreams would ultimately be fulfilled, and he needed it to take its time. And clearly, we will see, if you kind of keep this in mind, I don't know how much more we'll see tomorrow, but if you keep it in mind as you look over the parsha, you hear it, on Shabbos, whatever, there are moments that the brothers are clearly getting to a new point of recognition. And this would only happen if Yosef keeps stringing it along. And Yosef would tell you that it's not for him to decide when to string it along. He's just following God's message. So we discussed this morning the discussion of the Ramban and the Sforno about Lama Tisra'u. And now we had this very interesting Ramban about the dream. So clearly he's understanding differently than Rashi. I apologize. My daughter is still here. I haven't taken her to school yet because the timing didn't work out. So I'm not going to take comments that I really need to get on it, get a move on. Okay, so have a great day, everybody.